Hey guys, it's PhoneArena, and today we're checking out T-Mobile's Garminfone, which was launched a while ago, and actually it's the second device from Garmin-Asus here in the United States. The first one was actually the Nuvophone G60 for AT&T. Unfortunately, that device did not live up to the demands of mobile users out there with its proprietary Linux-based platform, but this one here is a little bit more compelling just because it sports Android underneath everything else. If you manage to handle one of Garmin's many standalone GPS devices, you'll notice that there's a lot of design elements and styles employed on the Garminfone that's found on those standalone devices. First of all, it's your typical Slate form factor. It's constructed primarily out of this plastic. The rear, though, employs this soft touch feeling material, which does make it feel somewhat rugged. It's normal size, not that heavy just because of the plastic. It may be uninspiring as far as design goes, but it's fitting for this type of handset. The first thing you'll be greeted to when you power on the Garminfone is its 3.5-inch touchscreen display, which is actually capacitive technology as opposed to the resistive one found on the G60. It's HVGA resolution, so it's 320 by 480 and support for 262,000 colors, saying that's going to be used primarily in the car for navigating. It has some fantastic viewing angles, and we didn't have any issues viewing it in direct sunlight. We're also happy to see that the touch-sensitive buttons are placed low enough below the bottom of the touchscreen so you don't make any typos when you're sending messages. You also have a D-pad here to navigate, and also if you press it down, it acts as a selection button. On the left-hand side, you have this notch for the charging mechanism for the dash mount. Same thing goes on the right side where it latches on. You have a 2-level shutter key button here, which is kind of stiff to our taste, and same thing applies to the volume rocker. Although the top, with the dedicated power button, it's fairly well sized and has a tactile response. On the back, you have a 3 megapixel autofocus camera with speakerphone. And when you open up the handset, it'll give you access to the battery, SIM card slot, and micro SD card slot. So if you're looking for an Android-powered smartphone, you're not going to notice it too much with the Garminfone. That's because it's running an older version, Android 1.6. And to really make the experience totally different is the fact that it's using Garmin's unique user interface, which is found on their GPS devices. So you're treated with these 3 icons here to get you to the most popular functions about the phone. On the right-hand side, you have this panel here, which gives you access to some quick functions. The one that's notable here is the widgets, which does give you somewhat of an Android-like appeal to it with the widgets on the on this virtual home screen, but there's no option to change the wallpaper, so you can't do that. And finally, if you move this, you can move over the app drawer to give you full access to the different programs on the handset. It does move pretty fluidly, but it's powered by a 600 MHz ARM11 processor, which does well, but you'll notice some lag when you begin to open up multiple programs. All in all, though, there's a lot of stuff overlaid on top of Android 1.6, so you really don't notice the fact that it is even Android. What perplexes us about the web browsing experience in the Garminfone is that it omits some key features that makes web browsing fun on Android. First of all, it doesn't have double tap to zoom in, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but at least it has multi-touch support, so you can do pinch to zoom in or pinch out to zoom out. But another crazy thing is the fact that it doesn't automatically resize text, so you're going to do a lot of horizontal scrolling left and right, which does become a pain after a while. And on top of that, there's just a slight lag or delay with the experience, so not really the best out there versus other Android smartphones. If you have a lot of patience, you're good for this handset, trust us. But if you're very quick and very responsive and you just want to make a quick text message, you're going to be thoroughly disappointed with the experience, just because after a while the phone does start to catch up on what you're trying to type, especially if you're a speedy typer. Even though when you put it in landscape, it might offer a better well-sized QWERTY keyboard, but still you notice that slight delay when it's trying to catch up with what you're trying to type out. Yeah, it's the stock Android music player, and it's not going to give you some great looking presentation when you look at something like the one that the Samsung Vibrant offers, but at least it does function correctly. It shows you your albums, your usual on-screen functions, but the thing that we want to point out is the fact that it has a deafening, and we're talking about deafening, it'll literally blow your head off just because of the fact that it has a strong speakerphone that is very rich in tones and to the point even deafening. The video watching experience on the Garminfone is luckily pretty decent. As you can tell, we have a movie trailer loaded on here. It's encoded in H.264 720 by 306 resolution. And as you can tell, it's running pretty smooth, no evidence of any lag, pretty good detail too. And on top of that, the strong tones of the speakerphone syncs up perfectly with the audio on the video. For anyone that's looking for a great navigational experience, of course the Garminfone is going to give you that. It's going to have a level presentation that's nothing like other handsets, but when you think about it, you have Google Maps with navigation, so it kind of conflicts in a way. But basically, you have all the rich features you find. As far as navigating, it presents you with detailed maps, so if you're not in an area that has data connectivity to the network and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, you'll still be able to get turn-by-turn directions just because the maps are stored locally. It presents you some useful information such as your arrival time and even your speed. So if you're speeding, you might want to slow down just so that you don't get a pullover and cops get you. But of course, you also have stuff like compass, your mileage, arrival time, as we said. You're even presented with different stuff. You could even find out specific points of interest, a location on a map. It offers even Street View, surprisingly. So it has everything that you want as far as the rich GPS navigational experience goes. Alright, going into this review, we weren't really particularly expecting anything out of the camera, but with the 3 megapixel autofocus camera on the Garminfone, we were really impressed by its overall quality. Granted though, the shutter key is kind of stiff to our taste, but it still took phenomenal looking photos, better than even some 5 megapixel shooters out there. It had great detail, colors a little bit on the darker side, but still, hey, it had pretty good detail. Indoor shots though, no flash obviously, but it had subtle colors and it looked somewhat a little bit more fuzzy looking just because of the lack of a flash and in low lighting conditions you do tend to see some noise. If you're looking to take videos, you could kiss the Garminfone goodbye just because it only offers QVGA capture, so that's 320 by 240, not the best quality obviously. It has superly pixelated. Granted though, it has a steady frame rate at 29 frames per second, but you're really not going to save these for precious memories. Thanks to its pretty strong earpiece, voices were pretty distinct on our end, but we did notice some static noise, but our callers did say our voices were clear too on their end, so no problems there. When you use the speakerphone though, you're going to be treated to yet another mind-deafening experience just because it produces some really strong and vibrant tones, so you definitely hear what the person's trying to tell you. Signal strength, we didn't have any problems or any drop calls during our use, and for battery life, we did notice that if you're going to use it extensively for navigation, you're going to notice it dropping a little bit more, but in normal use, not using it primarily for navigation, checking email and also the web, text messaging, we managed to get 1 day's use, but luckily it comes with a car charger, so that's a pretty good thumbs up in that regard. So let's just get the obvious out of the way. It's a fantastic device when it comes to navigational, turn-by-turn, or location-based services, just because it provides Garmin's rich experience seen on their standalone GPS devices. But when you compare it to other smartphones, specifically Android-powered smartphones, the device is definitely lacking, especially when you look at the web browsing, where generally Android phones really excel in. This one here, unfortunately, is kind of a step backwards somewhat, especially when you have Android 1.6 running the handset. Even though it's priced at $129.99 right now, it has that going for it, so it might be appealing for some people out there. But if you're looking for something, a really true Android experience, you might want to check out some other devices on T-Mobile's lineup. So if you'd like to learn about this handset or for all the latest cell phone reviews, news, specs, and information, you can check us out again at PhoneArena.com.